So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Chief Scouts Diamond Award, which is the second in a series of three awards that ultimately get you to the King Scout Award, which is the highest award in all of Scouting. The Diamond Award is the second of the three, as I mentioned, with the previous award being the Chief Scouts Platinum Award. It's worth mentioning that these awards, while you can jump up between them and go straight for something like Kings, in reality, it's far better to do them in order, especially as having done past awards, it makes it easy to do future awards. So, for example, here, if you have done the Platinum Award, when you undertake the Diamond Award, there are reduced requirements for having done the Platinum Award, essentially. And the same thing applies for when you are doing your Kings eventually. If you can get your Diamond Award before that point, it makes your Kings easier to get, especially in the sense of one particular aspect of this award, which are known as the ICV requirements, which is the International Community and Values aspect of the award, of which you can use your past awards. And I will get into that a little bit more. It's also worth mentioning that these awards are designed to run alongside the Duke of Edinburgh's awards. So Diamond Award is essentially Duke of Edinburgh Silver plus a few other things. The Platinum Award, which I've already covered in a past video, is the Duke of Edinburgh's Bronze Award plus a few things. And of course, the King Scout Award is the Duke of Edinburgh's Gold Award plus a fair number of different things, especially if you haven't done either the Diamond or the Platinum before trying to attempt the King's Award. It's worth mentioning that this is one of the higher awards in all of Scouting, the Chief Scouts Diamond Award, and you can wear it on your uniform up to the point that you leave Scouting Network at the age of 25, or until you achieve your King's Award, at which point you replace your Diamond Award on your uniform. If you achieve this award and you've already got your Platinum Award, you replace your Platinum Award on your uniform with the Diamond Award. Only Explorers and Network Scouts can undertake this award, and anyone over 25 can't, obviously, because that was when Network ends, and anyone who has yet to join Explorers can't start earning towards it. It's worth mentioning as well that, like the Platinum and Kings awards, the Diamond Award has a minimum time in service of Explorers before you can attempt it, which we'll get a little bit more into. But do know that if you are in the younger side of the Explorer section, it's unlikely you can actually attempt your Diamond Award straight away. You'll have to spend a few more months as an Explorer before being able to attempt it. So if you haven't got your Platinum Award, then start with that one, because naturally the requirements will open up as time goes on. Moving on, here we have the requirements of the Chief Scouts Diamond Award, as taken from the Scouting website. I'm just going to run through this very quickly. As I mentioned before, just a moment ago, essentially you have to be in service as an Explorer Scout or a Network Scout for at least 12 months. This means if you're joining Scouting later, rather than coming straight up from Scouts to Explorer Scouts, then you have to bear that in mind. It's worth, even if you are on the older side of things, to still join Scouting and try and get these awards. Obviously, they're very useful. But people who've actually been in Scouting for a while, they've gone through the Scout section and or at least started the Explorer Scout section as soon as possible at the age of 14, they're going to have a much easier time of getting the three awards, including the King's Scout Award. And of course, as it says there, it has to be 12 months combined. So in reality, if you join Explorer Scouts at the age of 14, the earliest possible time, you can only start actually earning towards your Diamond Award at the age of 15. And if you've spent extra time in the Scout section up to 14 and a half, then obviously it'll be 15 and a half. It's worth also elaborating, though, is that if you, for example, join Explorers at the age of 17, then you have to wait until you're 18 to start attempting the award. So moving on to the second requirement here, complete 12 nights away as an Explorer Scout or member of Scout Network, 8 of which must be camping. This may include the Knights of the Chief Scouts Platinum Award, which I covered in a previous video, which has slightly lower requirements. They must be different from other nights away used in different sections of the award. What it means by that is that there are nights away you have to do for your Duke of Edinburgh's award, and those cannot count towards these 12 nights away. They have to be separate. You can't double dip, so to speak. Generally speaking, if you've gone through Explorer Scouting, there tends to be a lot of opportunities to go on camps. Especially if you ask around in your district as opposed to just your group, then you're likely to find a number of camps you can go to or perhaps even help out with as a young leader. As it's worth mentioning as well at this stage that I would highly recommend anyone undertaking these badges to look into the Young Leaders badges as well, the Young Leaders Awards, which you can do alongside these awards very easily. And you get a number of different items of recognition from doing that as well. So it's an additional award essentially for free if you keep on top of it. A lot of people and a lot of districts tend not to keep a close eye on Young Leader Awards and they tend to fly under the radar. Chances are, if you're already attempting your Platinum, your Diamond, or your Kings, that you've met a good number or perhaps all of the requirements for your Young Leader Awards. So it's worth checking that out and keeping up on your Young Leader training, which is just to do with safeguarding, safety, and first aid. So it's fairly easy to tick those off. And just looping back to that point 2 there with the 12 nights away, as I say, if your group doesn't do a lot of camping, you can ask around your district and then you can ask around in your county. And if you really want to, you can essentially go ahead and help to plan some of these camps, or you can go ahead and go there as an active support member or something like that and help to run them. That's a very easy way to get these nights ticked off in quick succession. Reminder that obviously any nights away you've done as a as a scout does not count towards this. It has to be an Explorer Scout or as a member of the Scout Network. Worth mentioning as well is generally if you do a camp or a night away that's not on an official Scout event, if you just go into your back garden, you're going to find it very, very difficult to get that signed off. Generally, it has to be a permitted event, which means it has to be run by someone with a Nights Away permit who's actually registered the camp. So if you're going to try and skirt the requirements there, you're going to be in for a surprise, I'm afraid. As it says there, 8 must be camping. There is no requirement here actually. If you're doing something like the Scouts of the World award in Scout Network, which I'd recommend you do as well once you're in Scout Network. It doesn't say that those nights away that you spend doing your discovery event at Scout Network don't count towards this. I imagine they could. So there's another way there that you can get double change, as that's not part of the award here. The Scouts of the World award is separate entirely to the Platinum, the Diamond, and the King's awards. But don't take it for granted that you've actually met these 12 nights away and 8 nights camping requirements, because if you've done a lot in scouting already, your stage badge, even though it may say 20 or 30, it may not be actually all done within the Explorer Scout section and beyond. Moving on to number 3 here. Complete 4 activities from the ICV list. So essentially, the thing regarding this is that this is the real extra work you have to do. It's fairly easy to be a part of the Scout membership for 12 months. It's fairly easy to get those 12 nights away done. But the main 2 difficulties here are the Duke of Edinburgh's awards, obviously, but also the ICV list tend to be something you have to bear in mind, actually conscientiously work towards to tick these off. We'll cover these a little bit, I believe, in the next slide. But it's worth mentioning here that it says 4 activities, but if you read the text there, it says that you can actually have 2 of those activities you completed from your Chief Scouts Platinum Award, because if you're not knowledgeable on that, essentially the Chief Scouts Platinum Award is very similar requirements to Chief Scouts Diamond Award, but it requires 2 activities from the ICV list. It's worth mentioning that the ICV list for each of these awards is not identical. They do get harder requirements, so it's worth having those 2 done from the Platinum Award, so then you don't have to do 4 from the Diamond ICV list. As it says there, you should complete at least 1 from each area of the list. That will be pulled out and shown essentially if you do try to do too many from one list. It may be difficult to do some of the values list if you're not a religious person, I'm afraid, but there are other ways to do that. But I've seen a couple times in my capacity as an adult role, people trying to do, for example, 3 things or 2 things from the international list especially, and trying to double dip things which they shouldn't. So it's worth bearing that in mind if you're a scout leader or a section leader, or whatever the case might be that you are when you're signing this off. And I'd recommend, if you are someone who is district commissioner or higher, that you implement someone in a top awards style role to keep an eye on these kinds of things and their requirements. And moving on to number 4 there, you have to hold the Duke of Edinburgh's Silver Award. This is something that you can do alongside the other requirements, or there's no requirement that you have to hold that first before doing the rest of these things. So feel free to do that as your main goal, and then have these other 3 points here and the requirements to be your collateral ones. Just definitely do some planning ahead of time for those 4 ICV list values there. If you're not familiar with the Duke of Edinburgh's Silver Award, we'll cover that later in these slides. Moving on, the international aspects. This is the ICV list that exists for the Diamond Chief Scouts Award. So, as we say, number 1 here, complete a 7-day expedition in the UK with similar aims to those of the Explorer Belt. If you're not aware, the Explorer Belt is considered to be around about the 2nd most prestigious award in scouting, right after the King Scout Award, generally. The Explorer Belt is a 10-day expedition in a foreign country, and generally it's about immersing yourself in a different culture and travelling a minimum amount of time a day around the country to experience as much of it as you can. During that time you do a number of different projects, mini projects, and 1 large project over those 10-day periods, over that 10-day period rather. And the first point of this list here is essentially doing a trial run of your Explorer Belt within the UK, which is definitely something you can do. The 7-day commitment is something to bear in mind, but if you have a wish to complete this in a relatively short period of time, complete an ICV in a relatively short period of time, you can do that 7 days with, I imagine, relatively little planning outside of your group signing off on it and saying that it's okay. So if you wanted to tick off an ICV very quickly, number 1 is probably a good way of doing it, although 7-day expedition is longer than even the gold Duke of Edinburgh's requirements. But again, please do bear in mind you cannot double dip between your Duke of Edinburgh's requirements and your Chief Scouts Diamond Award requirements. They have to be separate. So you cannot do your Silver Expedition for your Duke of Edinburgh's Award and count it as some of those 7 days for that number 1 of the ICV list. It will not pass. Moving on to number 2. Take an active part in a project with an international development organisation. Present your experience. This is a very broad requirement here. Essentially, it can be a number of different things. The main part is that it has to be something that actually shows that you've gone out of your way and done something significant. So, depending on who you present to, it may raise some questions. It's worth mentioning that, generally speaking, when you're doing these kinds of presentations, certain local commissioners or certain local lead volunteers, as they may be called in future, will ask or will be invited to attend, and those people are ultimately the ones who are going to be keeping an eye on making sure you are doing this correctly. So personally, I would say skirt around this one unless you have something already in mind. For example, if you're going to a foreign country to help build houses, or if you're going to go plant a whole bunch of trees somewhere, and be it longer than a couple of days, because generally at the diamond level, especially, things get a little bit more serious, as we'll show in the rest of this list. Moving on, number 3, take an active part in international camp in the UK. When it says active part, generally we read this to mean some kind of helper role, or helping to lead a certain portion or plan a certain portion of the camp. Generally, just being a participant isn't being an active part. So if you have something in mind of going to, for example, a chamboree or a jamboree inside the UK, I know different counties run different styles of international camps where multiple different scouts from different nations attend. And it's worth mentioning that's generally the definition of international camp, is a camp where multiple different nationalities of scouts from different national scouts organizations attend. It doesn't count as if you just go to somewhere that is sort of internationally themed, but there's no actual international engagement there. There's actually something you could do that I believe does count here, that most people in the UK are aware of in terms of scouting, is the Jota Joti Jamboree, which is Jamboree on the air, Jamboree on the internet. What you can do for this is, if you plan and run your entire local Jota Joti camp, essentially, if you go to a local campsite and you plan that, you make sure all the internet works and get all the computers, get those all set up, that would be enough of an active part to count towards that international camp in the UK aspect here, and that would be 1 ICV ticked off for doing that. And additionally, that would also count towards your Young Leader awards, and likely towards some other aspects of different scouting awards too. Number 4, take part in a project at a campsite abroad, such as Candlesteg. I can't give you much information on this. There are different campsites that exist abroad. That is outside of the UK, is what it means by that. Generally, take part in a project means, be an active part, do something local rather than doing something remote. You'd have to actually fly down there and, help to build something or fix something. Number 5, organise a series of 4 evening programs for units on an international theme agreed with your mentor. So this is actually the one that I would recommend most people do, because, as I mentioned before, this actually correlates very well with the Young Leader Scheme, which is a very, very important part of scouting, and how we essentially build young people's skills to be good mentors, good leaders, and to be able to teach younger people or people of their own age. And the Young Leader Awards are quite prestigious. You get even an adult service ribbon, which you don't get for anything else in the youth section of scouting. So it's worth mentioning that. Additionally, 4 evening programs is not really a lot. That's 4 weeks worth of activities, but usually, an evening program is 2 hours. So you tend to be able to organize these in a relatively short period of time, and you can dot them out across a couple of months relatively easily, and essentially go down there and help to run these and plan them out. And it may seem like a lot of work to do that, but in reality, scout programs and nightly programs tend to comprise of 2 or 3 or 4 different aspects that last maybe a half hour each, and that's relatively easy to do. What some ideas I could give you for this would be international food, international games, things like that. Relatively simple. And you can even tie these into things such as the International Scout Badge for the Scout section if you do that. Although that's mostly in relation to point 6 here when it says room for another section. That's really the one you'll get your Young Leaders Awards and things with. Number 5 does say for your unit. That would be Explorer unit. I would highly recommend you do number 6 rather than number 5. But if you really wanted to, I imagine you could talk to your Explorer Scout leader about doing number 5. Although that would not count towards your Young Leader awards. Both number 5 and number 6 may count towards your U-Shape awards, but those are generally less important than things like your Young Leaders awards, because the U-Shape award, you'll take off your uniform at the age of 18, I believe, although maybe 25. I don't believe Network Scouts are allowed to earn or wear the U-Shape award. So, unlike the Young Leaders Award, which you can wear up to the age of 25 and beyond into leadership when you're a full leader. We'll skip over number 6 there. And number 7, complete any activity of a similar nature agreed beforehand, registered with your mentor. I will mention that while it seems like this may be the easiest path, this does diminish the, how do I phrase this, the authenticity of your award. So if, for example, you've already done this aspect of registering a similar activity and completing it for your Platinum Award, and you do this again for your Diamond Award, you've got a very high likelihood that when you submit these as part of your past ICVs for your Kings, that it'll be picked up by Gilwell or UK headquarters, and they will ask questions about it. Because if someone has too many of these non-standard aspects that they've done for their ICV values, it looks like there might be some tampering on a local level sometimes. That's my own personal thoughts on that. So I would, wherever possible, avoid taking number 7 here and do one of the other ones that are listed above, because it already gives you a lot of opportunities and a lot of options as to what you want to do. And some of those are not too difficult to pull off at all. So I would personally steer clear of number 7 there, but obviously it's up to you. Generally, I would save those number 7 sort of options for Kings if you end up running the clock down very close to your 25th birthday. And obviously, the more standard aspects you do from number 1 to number 6 there, for example, the more likely it is to pass Gilwell and be fully approved without any questions there. Because while the Platinum and Diamond Chief Scouts Awards are signed off on a local level, the ICVs you do with those will be part of your King's Award, which can only be approved on a UK headquarters level at Gilwell Park. So this all does get overseen and checked by Gilwell eventually. Moving on, community aspect. Here we have the examples for the community aspect. As you can see here, number 1, research and participate in an environmental or community-based project to make an improvement to a local environment or community. This could be within Scouts or another organisation. Present your experience to your unit or Scout network. This is a fairly simple one. Generally, it has to be something relatively large rather than just going somewhere for a day or something like that. It has to be a substantial amount of work, really, to be signed off properly. And again, it may be the case that you can get your Diamond Award signed off quite easily with a local level by your mentor or by your district commissioner or whatever. But bear in mind, if you ever do go for the Kings, again, this will all be reviewed, and there may be questions raised, and you may not actually be eligible for completing your Kings, so you have to go back and redo some of the King's version of the ICVs, which are harder to do than the Diamond ICVs. So please do bear that in mind, that it's worth doing it above board during the stages of Diamond and Platinum rather than chancing being caught out at a King's level and having to redo the more difficult King's ICVs. Number two, excuse me, work with the younger section to help them achieve a stage of their community impact stage activity badge or their environmental conservation activity badge. This is very easy to do generally. There are individual aspects to the stages of these community impact badges, and doing the stage one tends to be relatively easy. I will leave it to you to really look those up because there's too much to dive into there for the scope of this particular video. But generally, the community impact stage activity badges, also known as the Million Hands program, there are plenty of opportunities out there in regards to things like planting trees, doing balsam bashes, things like that that you can do. And again, work with the younger section there, as it says, that counts towards your U-Shape and your Young Leaders Awards. So do bear that in mind. Please bear in mind that these things may not count with the requirements to do your Silver Duke of Edinburgh's Award. Double dipping like that, I'm not sure if you can do. It'll depend on your local unit or group, I imagine. Number three, moving on here, complete the requirements to achieve stage 3 or 4 of the Community Impact Staged Activity Badge. So this would be your own Community Impact Stage Activity Badge, which you can do. But to be honest with you, if you are at the stage of being in the middle of Explorers, or if you are a Scout Network member, it's probably not really worth choosing this one because, again, those Community Impact Stage Activity Badges, they get removed from your uniform once you turn 18 and become a member of Scout Network, and you have no other recognition, into adulthood that you actually did any of that, really. Whereas if you do number 2 instead, you can get those Young Leader Service Awards and things which do actually stick on your uniform and are worth getting instead. But of course, you may be more independently minded as opposed to wanting to get those Young Leader Awards. You may just want to get this badge ticked off and count that as an ICV. So it's all down to you. Number 4, complete the Scouts of the World Award. I will mention this is probably something you want to reserve until you're working on your Kings. But if you'd like to, you can do this. In my opinion, the Scouts of the World Award is probably tied, sort of joint second place for most prestigious award in scouting, right after the King Scout Award. The Scouts of the World Award, if you're not aware, I will cover in a future video. But it boils down to doing 80 hours of community service that can be done sustainably after you've finished the project is the main thing. Additionally to that, you have to go to what's known as a Scouts of the World Discovery event, which may be run in your county, may be run somewhere else. Generally, they're relatively rare. They maybe get run once in the country every few months, I'd say. So you have to plan ahead towards those discovery events. The one I had to do, I personally flew out to Northern Ireland to do from where I am in England, which shows you how far you have to go sometimes to get to these events. But it's worth bearing in mind that the Scouts of the World Award is one of the few awards you actually get to wear on your adult uniform. It goes on your left shoulder, right at the very top of your sleeve, right below, I believe, your Explorer belt badge patch, essentially. And it's a very nice one. It's a internationally recognised award, unlike some of the other awards we have in the UK. It's one that is run by the World Scout Bureau, so it's very well recognised. So I think that if you want to do this at this point as part of your diamond, you can do, but 80 hours is more volunteering, I believe, than you'll do in your time doing even your gold Duke of Edinburgh's award. So it's quite a commitment. But I will say that doing it as I'm doing it and have essentially completed this award, you can do it pretty much on your own terms. There's no time limit beyond just being under the age of 25. And you can basically do it however you'd like. Essentially, by going to this discovery event, they will run you through a bunch of different options and they will make sure that the thing you choose can get you the award if you stick at it. But I would personally save that until you're working towards your King Scout award. But it's up to you. Depends how early you want to get that award. And again, number 5 here, anything similar that's registered with your mentor. Personally, as I say again, stay clear of this, I'd say, and just do one of the other ones. Really, it's not that difficult to, run and help the younger section to get their Community Impact Stage Activity Badge. There will be plenty of different opportunities and different groups, different sections in your local area that would absolutely love you to run that and work with that younger section. And you get not only that counting towards this Chief Scouts Diamond Award, but also towards those Young Leader and U-Shape Awards. Moving on, we have the values aspect, which I think needs a little bit of change personally, a little bit of reflection to update and give more options here, really, but I will leave that up to your judgment. I would say that if you are someone of little or no faith, the values aspect is harder to accomplish than if you are someone of faith. As it says there, number 1, take a regular part in spiritual reflection. This essentially means that if you attend a church regularly or a mosque regularly, you already get an automatic ICV, essentially, which I'm not sure I personally agree with hugely, but that's my own personal views on that and nobody else's. Of course, spiritual reflection can really be almost anything. Even if you're not part of an organized religion, it's more about just being reflective about your own spirituality and things like that. So it's a relatively easy one to do. And as you can see there, it doesn't really say how long that regular part should be. So it's a little bit up in the air, really. And I would say that it's kind of difficult to justify this and how much or how little it has to be. I would recommend doing something else on this list, but if you want to do, you can do that. Number 2, take an active part in a project examining your own faith or beliefs and understanding how they affect you. Discuss your experience with your mentor and present your experience to a relevant audience. By relevant audience, this usually means a younger section of scouting, although it could mean, if you're an explorer, your own explorer unit. Generally, again, this is something you have to discuss with your mentor, which really can be anyone who is going to help you with this award. And take an active part in a project examining your own faiths and beliefs really does mean a whole bunch of different things. I guess that part of the thing about values is they're unique to you. And I imagine that if you say, for example, that you are going to visit a number of different faiths and beliefs and different mosques and different churches, different denominations, and visit their churches and things, that would count towards this quite well. That'd be a very good way of doing this. But of course, it depends on what you'd like to do. Personally, I would hugely encourage anyone of faith and of no faith to visit different churches, different places of worship than their own. I think it helps increase understanding and sort of reduce discrimination and prejudice and things like that between different faiths. And I think that in the modern world, that's something that sometimes we lack a little bit. That's my own personal views on that, but I would highly recommend that, and that's a very well-grounded way of going about one of your ICVs. And if you really want to, I'm sure you could knock that out in a weekend or a week if you'd like to, and just visit a different church or a different place of worship every day, or for example, take some pictures, interview whoever's there or whatever. That would be a very good way of doing it. And obviously, because of the way we work and live in a multicultural society, I'm sure there's plenty of different places of worship around you that you can get to even within walking distance. Moving on to number 3, help a younger section to gain their faith activity badge, etc. Again, this will count towards your U-Shape, I'd imagine, and your Young Leader awards. So it's another way of ticking those off if you've not picked them up in your other sections of this award. And of course, in scouting, we're always looking for young leaders and people like yourself to go and help out with the scouting sections and things like that, because we're always needing more volunteers. So definitely look into that. And these different badges tend to be to do with a single faith. So something to bear in mind. Although I think that the Cubs and Scouts World Faith badge, actually, you can do a number of different faiths and sort of teach about the variety. Moving on to number 4 here, we have run an activity with another section that explores a promise, how to live by their promise, reflect on your promise, and discuss with your mentor. I think this is a very good one. Essentially, we all do a scout promise or some kind of promise when we are invested into our sections or into scouting in general, and these promises vary depending on your worldviews. But I think that it's quite important to explore how our promise really applies to the real world and how, for example, your time in scouting has cultivated you to be a better person and to uphold your promise. I think that can be very uplifting, especially as it says run with another section. So that would be a scout section or cub section if you're an explorer, or if you're a network scout, that'd be an explorer section or whatever the case might be. I will mention again that by running the activity within the section, that also counts towards your Young Leader awards, etc. Number 5, organise a series of 4 evening activities for your unit or another section to explore different faiths and beliefs. Again, this is very similar to what I mentioned before, so I'm going to skim over this one, but that's one of the ones I'd certainly recommend doing, because 4 evening activities really is not very much, especially if this actually says evening activities rather than evenings. So you can do one particular part of those 2-hour meetings that we tend to do with things like scouts and cubs, or as it says there, for your own unit even. So you could do, for example, a 30-minute or an hour section sort of activity rather than doing a full 2 hours one. Number 6, Scout of the World's Award. I've already covered this, but one part of the Scouts of the World Award is that it can be used for multiple different things potentially, but I don't believe that you can double dip these. So if you did the Scouts of the World Award and you put that down for your community or your international sections, you cannot use it again for the values aspect, I believe. And as I mentioned for number 7, generally I'd say avoid doing these sort of non-standard activities, but again, if you really are struggling to find something, for example, if you're not a particularly spiritual person, if you're more of a rational or kind of materialistic person, then you may find it useful to lean more on 7 here, but again, you may want to save those for when you're doing a King's section, depending on your circumstance, because there may be something that springs up in the time between earning your Diamond Award and earning your King's Award, such as university or college or whatever the case might be, or working, that makes it so that you have to sort of find a way to get similar nature activities, it says there, registered to actually be able to complete your Kings at all. Moving on, we have what I mentioned before as a first slide with the requirements that you have to hold your Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award as part of your Diamond Chief Scouts Award. There are alternatives I will cover in a second, but generally I would highly recommend anyone who's doing the Chief Scouts Diamond Award to also do your Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award alongside it. So, as we say here in the centre, this is the requirements for Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award, ages 15 plus. So again, if you are really keen and you're starting Scout section, the Explorer Scout section at the age of 14, as we saw with the requirements, you have to wait for a certain amount of time before undertaking the Chief Scouts Diamond Award. And if you are not yet at the age of 15 plus there, then there may be a way to go ahead and do the alternative to the Silver Duke of Edinburgh's Award, which I'll cover in a second instead. However, we're just going to assume that you're going to do the Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award here. So as it says there, it takes place over 12 months, which is an extension of, it's longer than the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh's Award. And I will just reiterate very quickly that you cannot overlap your time doing the bronze award with the silver award or with the gold award. You have to do them concurrent. You have to do them, one after the other. You can't do them all at the same time. I've actually had some questions of people in my own district, even about whether that they can do the bronze award, and do the silver award at the same time by counting different hours as different parts of it. You can't do that. You have to actually do your bronze, finish it, get it signed off, and then start doing your silver. You can't do them at the same time like that. And that's sort of accounted for in the way that the requirements are written. So as it says there, if you already completed your bronze award, you can do 6 months on top of that to do your Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award. But if you never did your bronze award, you've got to do 12 months. So essentially you're doing 6 more months to count for how long that bronze award would have taken, right? As it says here, moving on from that, you have to choose a physical activity and a skill to focus on and develop those for one of those for 3 months and the other for 6 months. I will actually say to you and to actually any leaders or anyone who is helping to run Duke of Edinburgh's in their district or county that developing means generally picking up a new skill or something that you've barely touched before. It does not mean continuing to do something that you've been developing for years. It does not mean just counting a different hobby that you're already doing as part of this, because that's not going to be within the spirit of Duke of Edinburgh's award. The Duke of Edinburgh's award, the spirit of it really is to broaden your aptitude in different things, and to widen your horizons and into new things you've not tried before. That's the point of it. So if you are, for example, already doing football for several years before starting your Silver Duke of Edinburgh's award, I would not put football down as a physical activity. And chances are, if you do, then it won't be approved, essentially, because you may or may not know this, but Duke of Edinburgh's awards are signed off on a county level, which means that if you put down something like football or whatever that you've done plenty of in the past, and you assume that that's okay, there may be a point where county gets back to you and says, actually, that doesn't count. And that means that if you've already started doing those hours towards the Duke of Edinburgh Silver, and you get told that it doesn't apply anymore, that you've wasted your time, essentially. So I would definitely do something new. For example, physical activity, it could be, just playing badminton. If you've never played badminton before, it's a very good one. Or, for example, archery, scuba diving. There's plenty of things you can do that are out there, and you may have never tried before. Snowboarding, if you got anything like that. Rollerblading is a good one as well. These are all good physical activities to do that chances are you've never touched before. And as it says, their skill as well. And you have to do one of these for 3 months and the other for 6 months. It really depends on you. If you're more of a sports inclined person, physically inclined person, I go for the physical activity. If you're more of an indoorsy person, I'll go for the skill. Skill can really mean a whole bunch of different things. Chess can count for a skill. Model making, there's a lot of different things. But the main thing I will say is that you have to keep up on your logbook for these, and you need to have an assessor that will actually be not impartial, but is not someone close to you or something that can throw you into sort of like question, right? If you have a teacher at school or someone at the hobby shop or whatever that you can ask to be your assessor for this and your mentor and to sign off on those hours you do, please do that, because if you choose a family friend or something, then as I say, when it goes to sign off a county, they might go, right, why is this person being the one who signed off on this? Can we be sure you've done these hours or not? So please do bear that in mind and try not to trick the system, because chances are those people who are signing this off at county level have been doing it for decades and they know what to spot. Moving on, volunteering opportunity for 6 months. I would highly, highly recommend that you do something in scouting, because even within your own group, if you're an explorer, your local unit at the hut you already go to will have different sections like Beavers, Cubs, and Scouts that you can go to, and they will guide you through the entire process. We're very, very good at getting people into volunteering opportunities and fully signed off, totally above board for the Duke of Edinburgh's awards. And in fact, if you look elsewhere outside of Scouts, you tend to have a much harder time of finding legitimate volunteering opportunities that will actually be easy for you to jump into. And equally, those people who are in those volunteering opportunities outside of Scouting probably don't have much experience with the Duke of Edinburgh's awards. They don't know what's expected of you. They don't know what to write in their assessor's report when it finally comes to it at the very end, because whoever you choose to be your assessor for these various sections, they all have to write a assessor's report, and they have to write it a certain way with certain aspects to it, and put down all their information and things. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a good mentor and a good assessor for that. And again, by doing these volunteering opportunities inside of Scouting, it all counts towards those Young Leader, etc., different awards. Moving on, go on an expedition for 3 days, and that includes 2 overnight stays in open country. Generally, if you do DV Silver or the Duke of Edinburgh's awards within Scouting, there are plenty of expeditions. We have decades of experience organising these expeditions. They run in different districts, in different groups, even in the county. So there will be plenty of opportunities to do this. And chances are, if you've been in Scouts from a relatively young age, you've probably already done an expedition similar to this, of those 3 days and 2 nights overnight. And it's not too different than just doing a weekend camp, except that you have to do around 20 kilometers-ish of travel during the days. And you have to carry your tent, your food, etc. on your back as well, which might sound like a tall order, but in reality, it's only 3 days. It's not long, and you've done enough hiking and expedition work and navigation that in Scouts, that it'll be a breeze pretty much. One thing that I've seen personally in my adult capacity within Scouts is people who are doing Duke of Edinburgh's instead with things like schools, and they go on teams of people who have never done even one overnight stay in their life in a tent. They get their sleeping bags wet, their tents fall apart essentially, their backpacks don't fit, their feet rub on their shoes. It's not worth it. And then even if you're competent, you've got to have a team that will cross the finish line, essentially, otherwise you all fail. So it's not worth, in my opinion, taking the risk of doing Duke of Edinburgh's with a school, and have a bunch of these people trying to do their awards who've never actually done any scout craft before and failing out, and then you having to fail because of that. So I certainly not. And something to mention as well is recently there's been a change announced to Duke of Edinburgh's awards, where more independent and external sort of assessment happens, so that the schools that sometimes sort of trick their way into the Duke of Edinburgh's awards are going to have a much harder time of doing that. And if those schools and those expeditions get caught out by these independent assessors, then you don't want to be caught in that crossfire and not get your award, even though you've sort of done some time out there in the expedition. So I'd certainly say do it with Scouting. And at the very end there, their achievements link directly with this award, essentially. Yeah, so worth bearing in mind. And essentially, the other thing to mention is that why have I got these pictures at the bottom of the screen? So these are the capstones for the Young Leaders Awards, which I can cover in a second. But essentially, there's not anything else in Scouting where you can get 3 separate benefits from completing an award. But by completing the Young Leaders Award scheme, you get from right to left here the Young Leaders Woggle you can wear to show that you've actually helped lead in your own right a section of Scouting, and you can sort of show your proficiency with that and that you've done something real to contribute to the movement. On the left there is the Adult Service Award, These are very rare, by the way. You may have seen some of these types of awards on your leader's uniforms, generally the same knot, but instead of where the acorn is, there's a number, for example, for length of service awards. These are hard to come by in adult scouting, and by completing different parts of the Young Leader Award scheme, you can earn this and actually wear it on your uniform, even as an explorer, which is kind of cool. And that stays on your uniform forever, essentially. This Young Leader Service Award, to show that even before you became an adult leader, you actually contributed to leadership and gained those experiences while you were still in scouting. So it's very, very cool, that. And also it's awesome colours with the purple and the green and the acorn. Those are not things that are on any other service award. Generally, the adult service awards tend to be grey or white. So this stands out quite well and is a very nice award. So I definitely try and get that, even if just because at some point, even in a few decades, you might want to be a scout leader for a while. And having that shows that you actually did your time in scouting, even if you didn't complete any of the other awards in scouting that can stay on your leader uniform. So, for example, if you didn't complete your King's Award, if you didn't complete your Explorer Belt or your Scouts of the World, then at least you still have this to show, right? And in the middle there is the Young Leader Belt, one of only 2 belt awards you get in scouting, this and the Explorer Belt. So the Young Leader Belt is very cool, and it stands out quite well on a uniform, especially in photos. You can only get this award by completing every aspect of the Young Leader Award scheme, which includes a number of different additional missions, which is just to do with running nights and things like that. But again, if you didn't know these awards existed, and you're already working towards your Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award or your Diamond Award, or even if you're not here yet and you're doing your Duke of Edinburgh's Bronze Award and your Chief Scout's Platinum Award, chances are you actually already count probably around halfway or more towards these Young Leader Awards, so it's worth talking to your section leader or whatever the case might be about these, because chances are you're very close to getting them anyway. And as an alternative, I'm just going to mention very briefly Diamond Scout challenges. So, for example, if you couldn't, for whatever reason, do your Silver Duke of Edinburgh's award because there's lack of support locally or something like that, you can instead do these, which is essentially the same thing. Although I'm not quite sure who signs off that you've done these because it's not administered by the Duke of Edinburgh's awards and all that. But I imagine your local scouting district or scouting county would look at the evidence for these and sign them off there. And I believe that's it. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been useful, and good luck. Thank you.